I'll tell you something I never thought I'd say out loud. The day I rode up my ridge and found a whole damn house sitting on my land, without a phone call, without a permit, without even the courtesy of a note, was the day I realized some people don't just cross boundaries. They pretend the boundaries don't exist. And that discovery kicked off the strangest, loudest, most exhausting chapter of my life. A chapter that still wakes me up some mornings, wondering if it all really happened, or if I just dreamed a very expensive soap opera. That morning had started simple, slow even. I live out in the Colorado backcountry, a place where the air always smells like cold pine, and the silence feels like a neighbor you trust. My wife, June, handed me coffee strong enough to shake the clouds loose and told me not to chase any more foxes. Long story, but I kissed her cheek, hopped on the ATV, and rode up toward the North Ridge to check winter damage. That ridge has been mine for 25 years. I know every rock, every dip, every stubborn patch of sagebrush. So when something shiny and too perfect flashed through the trees, I knew before I even braked that something was wrong. And there it was. A modern cottage, wraparound deck, stone pillars, glass walls, planted bold as a billboard, right in the center of my land. Not at the edge, not near a misunderstanding, not the sort of thing a drunk hunter might have built overnight. This was expensive, purposeful, entitled. I remember standing there with my helmet in my hands, breathing in that sharp mix of disbelief and irritation, thinking, who in God's name thought this was a good idea? I didn't panic. I'm a former state land use attorney, and panic doesn't win cases. Procedure does. So I documented everything, photos, coordinates, the whole works, while this strange little feeling in my gut kept whispering, this wasn't an accident, Cole. That's my name, by the way, Cole Hart. And on that morning, I felt my old legal instincts crawling out of retirement like they'd just heard the theme song to their favorite TV show. June came up with the drone, and together we circled the place. Fresh sawdust, cut stumps from century-old oaks, tire tracks leading off the slope. Whoever built this hadn't just trespassed. They'd carved into my land like they were preparing for a wedding photo shoot. And the stumps, man, those hurt. Cutting an old-growth oak is like tearing pages out of a family Bible. You don't do it unless you have zero respect for anyone but yourself. So I called two people I trust. Wyatt, who runs the only honest excavation company within 50 miles, and Mason, a retired structural inspector who knows how buildings fail. They arrived before noon. Mason walked around the deck once, crouched like he was listening for termites, then stood up with this grim little expression. Cole, he said, this place is a death trap. One heavy snow and the whole deck snaps off the hill. Whoever built this didn't just trespass, they're dangerous. And right there, I knew what came next. Under emergency abatement laws, I had the right to remove a hazardous, unpermitted structure on my land. So that's what we did. Slow, careful, documented demolition. No drama, at least not until the Queen of Drama herself arrived. Picture a silver luxury SUV climbing the ridge like it can't believe it has to touch dirt. Out steps a woman in designer sunglasses, heels, and a white blazer, on a mountain, mind you, looking around like the forest has personally insulted her. She storms toward us, demanding to know why we're destroying her dream property. Her name, Serena Lockwood, president of the Canyon Bluff HOA. And right behind her came her husband Grant, and two men, built like gym memberships, about to expire. I stayed calm, told her this was my land, showed her the overlays. But she waved a folder in my face, insisting she had approval, that her HOA had voted to expand uphill and integrate my parcel into the community. I couldn't help laughing, not because it was funny, but because sometimes absurdity hits so hard, it knocks the laugh out of you before the anger shows up. When I opened her folder, I nearly choked. She'd printed my signature onto a fake contract, a pixel-perfect cut-and-paste job. I held it up to the drone so it caught everything. That was when the pushing started. One of her men shove-shouldered me hard enough to rattle my teeth. Wyatt and Mason stepped in, and suddenly it looked like a low-budget action movie on the side of a mountain. I swear even the squirrels stopped to watch. Serena kept screaming that we were assaulting her family, that she'd call the sheriff, the governor, the universe. And she did call someone, so we kept working, recording everything. When the deputies arrived, it was like a teacher walking into a classroom full of kids mid-food fight. They took statements, watched the drone footage, and when they saw the forged signature, the tone changed. No arrests that day, but plenty of raised eyebrows in Serena's direction. They told us to pause demolition until the DA reviewed things, and we agreed. I play by the rules, even when the other side uses the rulebook as toilet paper. The next morning, just as I was beginning to breathe again, the EPA showed up at my door. Anonymous complaint. Claims of illegal dumping on the ridge, and wouldn't you know it, fresh construction debris was suddenly sitting right where the house had stood. Too fresh, too neatly placed, too convenient. Serena had retaliated, but luck has a funny way of circling back, because our neighbor Earl's trail cam caught Serena's husband sneaking up the ridge at midnight, dumping the trash like raccoons wouldn't notice. The EPA agents reviewed the footage, and their faces went pale. They collected the evidence, apologized for the intrusion, and left with a promise. The investigation was no longer about me. Within 48 hours, Serena filed a stack of lawsuits tall enough to use as a footstool. Emotional distress, property damage, harassment, sabotage, throwing everything but the kitchen sink, hoping one claim would stick to the wall. But she didn't know June. My wife builds cases like some people knit sweaters. Calm, meticulous, and terrifyingly fast. She laid out a timeline so detailed it could have doubled as a documentary storyboard. And then the email arrived. Anonymous. But the sender was obvious, a fed-up HOA board member. Inside, a gold mine. Emails between Serena, 2 board members, and a shady contractor. Serena telling them to build fast, ignore the boundary, cover legal fees with HOA reserve funds, and, my personal favorite, Cole won't fight back, he's just a quiet mountain guy. Quiet? Yes. Stupid? No. The courtroom hearing felt like walking into a season finale. Serena played the victim in black clothing, like she was grieving the loss of a home she never owned. Her attorney made me sound like a wild bulldozer bandit. But when it was my turn, I let the evidence speak. Drone footage, GPS, tree stumps, the assault, the midnight dumping, the forged signature, and finally, the email chain. The room went so still you could hear moral compasses realigning. The judge took off her glasses, looked straight at Serena, and said, "This is not just misconduct. This is manipulation, fraud, and a deliberate abuse of legal process." Then she dismissed every claim with prejudice, referred the case for criminal investigation, and granted me full legal fees. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just breathed. The fallout came fast. Serena was removed as HOA president that night. 2 board members resigned. Her husband stepped back from his firm. Neighbors began sharing stories of how afraid they'd been of her for years. And then something I never expected happened. People thanked me. Said the stand I took gave them courage. Said the mountain felt lighter, like it was finally exhaling. A week later, we hosted a small gathering right on the clearing, where the illegal cottage once stood. Just friends and neighbors, music, grilled food, and the kind of laughter that only shows up after a long storm finally passes. As the fire crackled, Deputy Langston pulled me aside and said, "Cole, we're opening investigations on 3 more HOA expansions. Same patterns, same players. We could use someone with your eyes and your backbone." I didn't answer right away. I looked out over the ridge, the place where this whole mess started, the place that reminded me why boundaries matter, on land, in law, and in life. And I realized the story wasn't over. Not for me, not for the community, not for the folks who'd lived under fear for too long. So, what should I do next? Step back into legal quiet, rebuild my peace, let the mountain stay quiet, or keep going, shine a light on the mess, and help straighten out the whole crooked system? I've made up my mind, but before I say it, I want to hear from you. If this were your land, your fight, your community, what would you do? Would you walk away now that justice is served, or would you dig deeper and hold every last person accountable? Tell me in the comments. I'm genuinely curious how you see it, and if you've ever dealt with an HOA nightmare or a boundary dispute, share your story, because trust me, you're not alone.